Welcome back, everyone. My name is Paul Hill, and I'm delighted today to be able to speak to Roger Bullen, CEO of Rosslyn Data Systems, ticker RDT, a specialist big data, AI, and spend analytics firm. Morning, Roger.
Morning, Paul. Good to be here.
Yep. I used to work for GKN and Unilever 20 years ago in finance and supply chain. And I remember when we used to buy things like chemicals and foodstuffs and steel, and it was impossible to get any sort of consistent, coherent purchasing data out of these systems. And we used to spend hundreds of millions of pounds as a group each year on these things and not get a single bean back in terms of retrospective discounting and price savings and stuff. Can you take us through a real life example of how Rosslyn software has helped this type of business?
Yeah, so that's quite a straightforward one because I don't think a lot has changed within the procurement and the finance world. People still have all this disaggregated data around the globe, and getting it together and pulling it together is what Rosslyn does. Our platform, known as Rapid, it uses our own technologies, our own RPA, our own AI. It aggregates data, it takes it from operating systems, ERPs, financial systems, any real system that an organization has, all this disparate data, puts it together, whether it be structured or unstructured, and really joins it together in a fairly unique way. And it actually turns that data into something that can be trusted, something that the organization can use, can look at, and can share across the entire organization. I'm sure when you were working for those organizations, one of the biggest problems was you'd have someone in the US working with completely different data than someone else working in China or in another country. No one had that consistent data.
Oh yeah, we were always struggling with one set of numbers, that's for sure. On your on the website, it talks about cost savings for one client, and it says it describes it as a multinational support services organization, savings in first year of $80 million. I mean, I know that's probably sort of like a big number, but are we talking of that type of order that you can potentially save large multinationals?
It really depends on the type of organization you're dealing with. That example was the client was very acquisitive. So it was actually getting benefits of scale. So as soon as it was able to acquire an organization, it could see the suppliers that it had around the world that were able to supply different widgets, different mechanical engineering parts that that they actually needed and could actually buy better. So it gave them the opportunity for improving the scale, improving the speed and the just-in-time delivery to their factories and their the raw material pricing. And very simply, it created enough information for them to say, we can buy that cheaper, we can buy it on time, we can buy it from that country. We don't always have to go down the same path that organization in the past had been.
Okay, and what are the sort of the key sort of differentiators, the USPs for Rosslyn versus its sort of competitors, maybe, I don't know, Cooper Software or SAP Ariba? What does it do? What's it sort of like its secret sauce?
Well, there's no silver bullet. So, the secret sauce is we're really good at getting data out of solutions and putting it together. The more complex a client, the better we are suited. 2 or 3 operating systems, many companies can compete with. When it comes to 50, 60, 100 different ERP solutions around the world, and they don't all have to be of the same flavor. Most often they're not, especially if the company grown through acquisition. What we've been able to do is we've been able to put all of that together, but not only join it together, we've been able to enrich it with third-party data sources, with finance and regulatory requirements from government and other freely available sources that are out there on the web, scraping the web, getting that info, and adding more value to that data, turning that data into real information that can be used. We like to call it, we've created a golden record about your supplier. You know everything about it, and you can share that information because we're on the cloud. That can be accessed by anybody, no matter where they are, whether they're on a tablet, whether they're on the phone, whether they're on their laptop, well, on a desktop. And COVID has proven how easy it is to use our solution, no matter where you are in the world, and no matter when you're working from home, you're from an office. Our client usage has actually increased during the COVID period, which is great. Yeah, um,
Ha-
and a really good. Sorry.
and how often is this data refreshed? As in, like, if somebody gets it from
That's really
100
up to our
ERP
client.
system.
Yeah, that's really up to our client. Yeah, we don't have any that do it real time, so it's not a one-to-one. But we do have clients that refresh every 10 minutes. But the norm would be either daily, weekly, or monthly.
Okay, and give us a quick example of how you augment the structured data with this unstructured, maybe from the outside third parties, regulatory, to get this sort of golden record of maybe suppliers or master file data.
Yeah, I think the good, a really recent and good example is where we took the data from Johns Hopkins University. Now that was structured data, and we were able to download it, but we were able to overlay that to the supplier list that our clients had. Yeah, we did this within 48 hours of lockdown being imposed on us. We actually prepared a dashboard and issued that free of charge to all of our clients and said,
That
"This
was
is
very
what your..."
generous.
Well, yeah, we had a lot of clients who were, again, we had airlines, we've got retailers. We know that they were suffering, and this was a way that we could help. And it wasn't an expensive piece of work to do. A couple of days, a couple of engineers building the dashboard, getting that data, overlaying it, and tying that data with our clients' supply chain. Yeah, enabling them to prioritize and interact with their suppliers, so that they can make sure that if the supply chain was always fed. They were always going to have the raw materials. They were going to have that continuity. They could slow down deliveries if they needed to. They could speed them up. They could move from one supplier to another. Geographically hopping, using the information that's in our engine. I like to call it our value engine. Yeah, because it adds tremendous value to what procurement, risk, and compliance can do to an organization. And it really showed how resilient a business could be if it improved its supply chain.
And just on that, Roger, in the announcement this week when you talked about the COVID dashboard, you mentioned that one of your clients had saved up to 12 million euros just so far. Can you just briefly talk through that, how they did it using your software?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is due to they actually implemented our days payable outstanding dashboard, which is just another dashboard that we actually supply, and enabled them to actually look forward and see which suppliers were actually due for payment in the next few days. So a lot of that saving came from better cash flow management, ensuring that the supply chain was slowed down as their business slowed.
So it was working capital and stuff like that.
It's predominantly working capital,
And
but
cash.
it's ensuring that the supply chain and picking the right suppliers to talk to, understanding who you're dealing with, getting that relationship and maintaining that relationship going forward. The worst thing these guys want to do, as they go through COVID, where they're really struggling for revenues, but they've still got a cost base, is to annoy their supply chain. They want those suppliers to be understanding, know what's going on, and be communicating. There's no point burying your head in the sand. You've actually got to start talking to them.
Yeah.
And our solution gave them the ability to know who to talk to, when to talk to, where to move the products from, when to delay those products, or when to speed them up.
And how scalable is the software? I mean, I'm looking at your gross margins, and they're sort of 80% plus. So it sort of infers that you get a lot of repeatability, and you can basically lift and shift stuff. But if you've got a large customer, you do a lot of upfront customization. How easy is it to then to transfer that knowledge, the IPR, to say another big multinational?
Well, there's not a lot of customization. There's a lot of configuration. So it's when we extract the data, we use our own tools and we use APIs that are freely available, and we configure it to our own unique schema. Everybody uses that same schema.
Right.
And it's that schema that delivers against the dashboards and the data mining. We are investing more in the front end because it is it needs a refresh. So that's one of the things that we raised money for recently.
Okay.
But the core functionality is there. It stays there. We don't need to customize that dramatically. The implementation time for a client is anything from 4 to maybe 16 weeks, dependent on the complexity. We've just completed a client with over 70 data sources, ERP data sources, and that took probably 4 months' work to do that.
Right. Okay. So as basically as the revenue, what we're saying then, as the revenue comes in and we increase, or Rosslyn increases its ARR, its recurring revenue streams, we should continue to see a lot of positive operating leverage at the profit level, because a lot of this profit should drop down.
Yeah, exactly. Our operational gearing is very high. We will have a great delivery performance. We can add significantly to the top line without increasing the underlying cost structure significantly at all.
Okay, and then just coming on to the fundraise, I mean, that really was sort of like eyebrow raising last month, that you did a £7.3 million placing at a 22% premium, which is totally unheard of in these times, showing the response or the excitement, enthusiasm for investors. Can you just take us through what you're going to spend the money on? I mean, frankly, I think it's quite difficult to spend the money in this environment. Everybody's locked down.
Yeah, well, it's even harder with Ash around telling me what we can't do. But yeah, no, we decided to raise a small amount of money because we weren't sure what would be happening with our client base, and to the firm as regards to COVID. So we only went to market to raise a small amount. But the uptake was so exciting, and it was a great reception. We had a very good presentation, and our shareholders really liked it, which is great. But the primary reason is we know we've got to increase our sales and marketing engine. We have to focus on that top line. So the organic growth strategy is, we've already started actually since we've been in lockdown. We have a CRO lined up to start fairly shortly. That'll be announced when we've done all of the reference checks and all of that sort of thing. We've started to build out the sales team. We've got the marketing people on board. So increasing our sales engine is probably the first thing that we're going to do.
And is that direct sales rather than channel?
It's direct sales to start with. We have a channel sales team, but that's predominantly a lead generation where we're working with our partners who are in P2P solutions or something of that sort of nature. So predominantly we're direct sales. What we're also doing is with the money we've raised, we are going to look for some reasonable size acquisitions. I'd hope to get one across the line this year, but not with a need to go to the market for further cash this time, using the cash that we've already raised in March or in May.
And what type of scale and what type of technology or geographical reach are we talking of?
We've set ourselves a number of criteria, and we're really looking for organisations that are software technology businesses that are either SaaS or can be moved to a SaaS business. Can be sitting on our platform. So it doesn't really need to be a fully fledged SaaS business at the moment, but it has the capabilities. It has to be related to our strategic objectives of managing somewhere along that supplier and procurement master data management suite of products that we have.
And the ambition of the team, what are you seeing in terms of the sort of the growth going forward? I mean, let's just assume, obviously, we've got a bit of as everyone has, a bit of an air pocket or a bit of a sort of like a rebalancing with COVID over the next 6 to 12 months, etc. But once we're through that valley, how do we see the organic growth rates? I mean, most of the research experts are pointing to a market for big data, AI, and spend analytics of roughly 15% per annum, high teens. That's like for like. Is that the sort of figure you're thinking of for sort of organic, augmented by acquisition, or?
Yeah, I think we always strive for around 20% organic growth, and that's the sort of number we'd be looking at. We do see there's a lot of conversations going on about digital transformation. The COVID sort of cycle that we've been through has pretty much been very transactional, getting me over the hill now. Whereas, clients and potential clients, they're talking to us now about longer term digital transformation of their procurement teams and their procurement functions. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of opportunity for the growth. One of the things that we've added recently to our portfolio is the ability to write back to ERP and other platforms. And that's a real differentiator for us.
Can you give us an
I think
example on that? Well, why is that important? Because it's quite dangerous if you're sort of like doing a bit of manipulation with AI, bringing some sense and intelligence into it, and then putting it back into an AI. If I was a finance director, I'd be a bit worried.
Well, and yeah, so we would only go through sort of standard APIs that are issued by the ERP manufacturers and the like. We're not going to go and tinker with the ERP system and destroy it.
Yeah,
the ERP system. So, we're very careful of that. And we know that the IT security teams and the finance departments will, want to watch over it. So, we'll give our clients the ability to either use an API to load the data or us supply the information to them for them to load themselves.
okay.
So they'll have that ability to actually say, no, I don't want to load this data. But really, we're talking about putting further information into the ERP system, like who is the parent company of a supplier, so that when you do a search in your ERP system, which is by far the biggest used solution in any organization, they can actually see that. The golden record that we have will give that information around the globe. There's no point having that information only in the UK if your supplier is globally, if you're not sharing that information with people in the US.
Yeah, I saw one, just on that golden record bit, I saw one of the other exciting areas of sort of product development, organic, is this master data management and particularly focusing on the supplier side. Can you just talk about that and how it could, potentially sort of like, take the company to the next level?
Yeah, so really that's one of our sort of growth areas, is this cross-sell and upsell opportunities that we have, and opening new markets for us. So the supplier master data management is all about workflow and onboarding at the front end, taking that supplier on board, bringing in all of the compliance and the regulatory requirements that you have, the ISO certificates, storing it, being able to manage dates and manage all of that information. We're even looking now at adding DocuSign type of thing, so contracts can be signed through the workflow process. Taking that data, being able to load that into an ERP system. There's no point having a client onboarding solution that you don't actually update into your ERP system. So that's a mandatory requirement. But then once that's done, enriching that data with Dun & Bradstreet information, other third-party information, sanction data, and enabling clients to actually alter the data on the fly and then put that back into our engine and then write that to other ERP systems as and when it's used. Put the spend analytics in there, so you've got the full functionality of the Rosslyn data suite, and then put that back into the ERP system. So this complete cycle of loading supplier data, actually loaded by the supplier themselves, so that it's accurate and correct, being able to capture that information, doing the spend analytics and the procurement analytics that's required, and then playing that all back through the finance and the ERP systems.
So when we sort of put all this together and we look at sort of like, the secular tailwinds from the industry, sort of 15% organic growth, we look at the sort of like the move to the cloud, which has been accelerated by sort of like, COVID and demand for corporates to sort of like, reduce their costs and reduce their sort of supply chain in terms of working capital, etc. And the new products that you're bringing on board. What sort of like size of the business do you anticipate that the company could get to in sort of 3 years' time?
Well, when we did the fundraise, we actually said that our aim was to triple the business within 3 years, and that's still our goal.
Yeah,
that will be a mixture of organic and acquisition, and the percentages I'd like to say should be around the 50-50 mark, but time will tell for us on that one.
Okay, well, that's brilliant for investors. And then just finally, what sort of news flow do you think the investors could sort of anticipate over the next sort of 3, 6, 9 months? Contracts
you've seen the recent announcements where we've had contracts renewed from clients during the COVID period. And what was really refreshing is we were able to renew contracts for multi-years rather than just the singular year, which really gave good rubber stamp for the quality of the product, the quality of the value the clients are getting, and really their trust in the service levels we deliver and the product that that we're able to deliver to them. So I'm expecting news flow we'll certainly be upping our game on news flow. I think we've been fairly light in news flow recently, and I think that the enhancement of the sales and marketing team can only add to that.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant, Roger, and many thanks for your time. I'm looking forward to hearing how the business progresses over the in due course.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure.